guys, and welcome back to another Mystery Monday video on my channel. First things first, my niece is kind of like right in the hallway outside my room as of right now. So if you can hear her crying or talking, I do apologize for that. Also, quickly before we get into this video, I do just want to say that in this video we do talk about suicide and things along those lines. So if that is going to trigger you, you might want to click out of this video and go watch another video on my channel. But yeah, with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. Elizabeth Eaton Converse was born on August 3rd, 1924. She was born in New Hampshire and was a middle child in her family, and she was born into a very strict Baptist home. Her father was a minister and her mother worked as a music director within the church. So Elizabeth grew up really into music. She loved singing and she also played the guitar. On top of being very interested in music, Elizabeth was also super intelligent, and when she graduated high school, she was actually elected as valedictorian and graduated with 8 academic awards. And among these 8 academic awards, one of them was a scholarship to a college in Massachusetts. Now, Elizabeth attended this college for 2 years, and what she took or what she studied while she was at this college, I couldn't really find online, so I'm still unsure what exactly that was. But again, she did attend this college for about 2 years before dropping out and deciding to follow her dreams of moving to New York City. When Elizabeth first moved to New York, she was working as a writer, and she was actually very successful in this, as some of her work was actually published in some very popular newspapers at that time. So her writing career was really taking off. But around this same time, Connie decided that writing was not her passion and she wanted to go into music. So she started writing and singing and performing her own songs. And around this same time, Elizabeth developed a new group of friends, and this is when she took on the nickname Connie. And that is what I will be referring to her as throughout the rest of this video, because I keep almost calling her that anyways, and that is what she started to introduce herself as, so I will be calling her Connie from this point on. Now, like I said before, Connie was really interested in writing and singing her own music, but she really only performed for her small group of friends. And at this point, she'd also started to heavily take up drinking and smoking. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Connie was born into a very strict Baptist home, so this was against her religion, and of course her parents didn't approve of this lifestyle, which kind of made them not approve of her singing career or her music career or her interest in music, because they thought that this was a result of that. In fact, Connie's parents so heavily disapproved of her music career and her interest in music that her father actually passed away without ever hearing his daughter sing or play her guitar at all. I mean, I'm sure when she was little, he probably heard her sing, but once she got bigger and started writing her own music, he had never heard her perform or sing one of her very own songs ever. At this point, Connie started to record some of her music on a little recording device that she had in her apartment, and she would record this, and once a month she would send some of these songs to her brother Phil and his wife Jean. And between the years of 1950 to 1955, she'd actually sent them over 3 dozen songs. In 1954, one of Connie's friends brought her to what was referred to as a music salon. And there, this place was owned by a man by the name of Gene Ditch, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and he was an animator. And when guests came into his home and they played music or they did something like that, he loved to hear them perform. So after Connie had arrived at his salon, he asked her to play him some music. He did end up performing for Gene, and he did record her, and he ended up saying that he absolutely loved Connie's sound. He was super into her music and that she was unlike any woman he had ever encountered before. Now, Connie was a very original type of person. She really wasn't into her appearance like a lot of women were back then. She didn't really care too much about anything other than her music. She was super focused on her sound and what people thought of her music, but she didn't care what people thought of her or how she looked or anything like that. She was just really dedicated to her music. Because Gene really liked Connie's sound and he thought that she was going to be a very successful singer, he decided to use his connections and get her a spot on the CBS morning show where she would perform live. Now, this was her only live performance. After Connie's performance was done, everybody who watched it, including Jean, told her that she did an amazing job, and they all thought that this was going to be the start of a very successful music career. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Connie did not receive any reach from this performance that she did on live television. Nobody reached out to her to offer her any more gigs. It just really didn't lead anywhere, and what everybody thought was going to happen really didn't at all. Nobody offered her any jobs. There was just nothing that came of this at all. She sang on the TV and then nothing. Now, as you can probably imagine, for Connie, this was super discouraging. She had dreamed her whole life of being in the music industry, and she finally had the opportunity to perform on TV, and she thought that this was going to turn out into something great, and it just didn't. So she was super discouraged by this, and she actually completely stopped playing the type of music that she had originally been playing and started playing something that sounded really different. But still, she never got the outcome that she wanted from this. In 1961, Connie decided that she didn't want to chase this dream anymore. She wanted to just give it up. She was middle-aged now, and she hadn't had a boyfriend, she didn't have any kids, she didn't even have a really solid career, and she could see all of her friends and the people around her who were around her age. They were all getting married, they all had children, they all were in really successful career positions where they were doing something they loved, and Connie felt like she was missing out on all of this because she was so busy chasing her music career that just didn't seem like it was reachable at this point. So she decided to pack up all of her stuff and move to Ann Arbor with her brother Phil and his wife Jean. After moving to Ann Arbor with her brother and his wife, Connie got really into politics, and she became a political activist. She also started writing again, but not music. She started writing books and stories and things like that, and she would also take academic jobs. But she didn't like these jobs at all. They really wore on her both mentally and physically, and they were just really bringing her down, and she was not happy in the way that she was living. Despite being super unhappy in her situation, Connie continued to work these jobs for a total of 10 years. Now, at that point, everybody in her life could see just how unhappy she was. She was so uncomfortably unhappy, at this point in her life that she'd actually cut out all of her friends from New York and only focused her time on the friends that she had in Ann Arbor. But again, she was so unhappy that everybody took notice. Everybody could see that even at work she wasn't giving her all. She was a very free-spirited person. She had a passion for music, and now all of a sudden she was on this really strict routine. She was doing the same things every single day. She was working again an academic job. She was really studying politics. Just none of this seemed like it was in Connie's character. And Phil could really notice a change in his sister. So at this point, all of her friends in Ann Arbor, including her brother, gathered up a bunch of money and decided to send Connie off to Europe. Connie, of course, like anybody would be, was super thankful to all of her friends and her brother, and she was just over the moon about this trip, and she ended up going to Europe and spending 8 months in London, England before returning home. Now, they said that she had an amazing time on this trip. She loved being there and everything like that. But once she got back home and into the same routine, it had the same outcome. She was, again, very depressed, very unhappy, really unsatisfied in her life, and she just got back right into the same funk that she was in before she left. Now, because again everybody could see that being home was making Connie depressed and making her unhappy, Connie's mother invited her on a trip to Alaska with her and her friend, but this was not a trip that Connie wanted to go on. Again, Connie was a very heavy drinker and smoker, and her parents didn't approve of this, so she would be gone on this trip and she would not be able to drink or smoke, or she would have to hide it from her mom in order to keep the trip, pleasurable for both of them, or else her mother would be really upset, they'd be fighting, and it just wouldn't be something that Connie would enjoy. But she really didn't know how to tell her mom no. She felt bad that her mother had offered her to go on this trip, so she just decided to go anyways. And nobody really talks about what happened there. Nobody talked about how her drinking and smoking went, if she stopped while she was there, whatever. But Phil did come out and say after this it all happened that he thought that this trip was what pushed Connie over the edge. After returning from this trip from Alaska, Connie's mother actually started to plan another trip just for her and Connie. And I don't really know how Connie would feel about this one because she didn't want to go on the first one, but her mother thought that just keep going on vacations and leaving and traveling would really help her daughter's mental state, so that is what she was trying to do with planning out all of these trips. Now, once they arrived home from Alaska, Connie had gone to the doctor, and this is when she was told that she needed a hysterectomy. Now, again, Connie didn't have a boyfriend. She, I don't think, ever had a boyfriend, and she didn't have any kids of her own, and the likelihood of her having children did look slim. But Connie, again, was a very free-spirited, loving person with a big personality, and she absolutely adored children. So for the doctors to tell her that she would never be able to have any children of her own just completely broke her heart, and this really made the entire situation that much worse. And in August of 1974, just 1 week after Connie's 50th birthday, she sent out letters to her loved ones that stated she needed a fresh start, and she had loaded up all of her belongings into her Volkswagen Bug and was going somewhere else to start over. And nobody has ever heard from or seen Connie Converse since that day. A couple of years after Connie had vanished, one of Phil's friends had reached out to him and said that there was actually an Elizabeth Converse in the phone book. And this Elizabeth Converse had her address listed as well as obviously her phone number. But they couldn't remember if she was living in Kansas or Oklahoma. And they weren't exactly sure if this Elizabeth Converse was Connie. Now, this friend did send the phone number on to Phil, but Phil had said that it was clear in Connie's letter to the family that she was leaving by her own accord, and she knew where Phil was, she knew where Jean was, she knew where all of her friends were, and if she wanted to reach out or contact them, she would have done this by her own accord. So he didn't want to contact her if this was her and, you know, shake up her life or disturb her if she was now truly happy. So if this Elizabeth Converse was Connie is completely unclear, and nobody has the answer to that. People who knew Connie, mostly her family, especially Phil, really strongly believed that Connie sadly left the town and then took her own life. They more specifically believed that she drove off a bridge in North Dakota, but her car and her remains and any leads showing where Connie could have possibly gone or what happened to her have never been found. All Connie wanted in her entire life was to be a successful musician. Now, unfortunately, that didn't end up happening when she wanted it to, but in the early 2000s, Jean Dietsch, the guy who invited her to the music salon and recorded her and got her that space on the television show back in the day, actually played some of Connie's music on a radio station segment called Spinning on Air. And her music really resonated with some people. Everybody loved it. It had a really good outcome. And that is all she ever wanted, and now she's on Spotify. They actually made a compilation of all of the music that she had recorded before she vanished, and they put it on a record, and it actually was released in 2009. So although her music didn't take off while she was around, it has taken off now and is quite popular, and I do say so myself. She did sound like she was ahead of her time, and her music is actually pretty good. But guys, that brings us to the end of this video. I know this video was a little bit different than my usual Mystery Monday videos, and it's probably quite a lot shorter, but I just wanted to get a video out there, and I do think that this case is pretty interesting because she got famous after she vanished. All she wanted was to get famous. I don't know, I just thought it was pretty interesting. And we don't really know what happened to her, and there's just a lot of unanswered questions in this case, so I thought even though it was shorter and it wasn't my typical video, it was still pretty interesting. So anyways, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!